Hey everybody, I am Vince of Geekvolution, and welcome to Horror Movie Rewind. Warning, some of these images may be graphic. I felt it necessary to choose a horror film that may not be considered a traditional horror. A handful of people have asked me, is Jaws really a horror film? And the answer is a resounding yes. Apparently, some believe Jaws to be strictly a thriller. To that I have this to say. A good horror movie is also a good thriller. A thriller's main objective is to suddenly induce a heightened state of emotion during which the heart pounds and blood throbs in the temples. The experienced excitement is what is known as the roller coaster effect. It has its ups and downs and highs and lows. People on a roller coaster can take the curves while smiling, enjoying the sheer velocity at which they are traveling. Some people will enjoy it based on the love of getting close to death and emerging from the ordeal primarily unscathed. Thus, suspense and horror are two sides of the same coin, a coin known as exhilaration. I also think that Spielberg has an interesting reputation as a director. We tend to remember Spielberg in the context of E.T., Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park. Even Hook, if you like that sort of thing. And admittedly, I do. But anyway, I digress. Jaws is easily put with these films because it's PG. We've come to expect our horror to be R-rated gore fests, which is not necessarily bad considering that gore itself can be made creative, even artistic. But since Spielberg is most famous for his family films, or what I'm going to call family films, we accidentally con ourselves into remembering his repertoire, even a horror classic like Jaws, as something other than what it was intended to be. I spoke with one gentleman who told me that Jaws is not a horror film because it's not based on the supernatural. When it comes to villains, horror films run the gamut. Sure, there are the typical ghosts, vampires, and giant monsters, but horror films can be about feasibly anything. For example, people whose only claim to villainy is that they are crazy. So if a person with no otherworldly imbuement can carry a film by wielding a chainsaw or a machete, a shark can definitely be a fit subject for a horror film. And let's not split hairs here. This is a giant shark. It's not like a medium-sized shark is trying to eat its fill of the tastiest swimmers. This is a great white. The grand poobah of sharkdom. The big reason that Jaws is easily mistaken for something other than a horror film is the impact that it had on movie marketing. Until Jaws, films were only released regionally. Therefore, films had no big premieres. Sure, some premieres may have been more significant than others. For example, an early premiere in Hollywood, California would be more significant than the drive-in located in Podunk, Missouri. Jaws is the first film given a nationwide release. The first film to premiere in theaters everywhere on the same day. In order to pull this off, marketing was ramped up. T-shirts, toys, games. The novel on which the film was based was re-released in paperback with the same promotional artwork as the film. This all led to Jaws becoming the first summer movie. Hollywood's major productions were typically released during the winter months, and Jaws paved the way for Hollywood to turn the summer into its most important season. And judging from Iron Man 2's ridiculously epic advertising and merchandising campaign, you can see that not much has changed since Jaws originated it. For a guy like me, the resulting question is, did Jaws deserve all the hubbub that it generated? It may be significant to film history, but is it good enough to be watched, or should it only be read about in textbooks? Interestingly, the film is hardly complicated, but is terrifically rewarding. Jaws is the world's greatest B movie. I've seen a few old sci-fi films that followed the same structure. A monster attacks a town, the town calls in a scientific expert, and then they hire a hunter to kill the monster. Or they alert the military or something. Either way, a hunt ensues and the monster is killed. The thing that sets Jaws apart from the herd is that the script, while using B-movie structure, has first-rate dialogue, characters, and timing. The script does not force its information down your throat. This is step one in turning a B-movie into an A-movie. When we first meet Police Chief Brody, we see him speaking to his wife. Then we see him conducting official business where he inspects a mutilated body. A little later, people call him Chief. The script allows us to figure out that he's the chief of police. It doesn't underestimate our intelligence. Sure, later they explicitly state his job title, but that's halfway through the movie, and it's in a comedic line of dialogue. Hooper asks Brody if they will get in trouble for disobeying the mayor. Brody responds, "I'm the chief of police. I can do what I want." Hooper is also a good example of gently introducing information. He's a shark expert, and he demonstrates his knowledge before he announces his profession. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Quint. He boldly announces to the members of a city meeting that the shark is a man-eater, and he is the only one who can kill it. The scene is more comical than anything else, and is difficult to take seriously. But maybe it was intended to be that way. I saw the scene and fully expected Quint to die. If realism has any place in cinema, how can a man so bold be allowed to survive? Oh, well, there you go. The best thing about this movie is what we discover about the characters. Even the little character quirks are made available to the audience. Hooper makes an appearance at Brody's home to discuss important matters. With him, Hooper brings a bottle of champagne and tells Brody that the bottle should be set to breathe for a moment before drinking. From this little detail, we can determine Hooper's position among the upper echelon of society. Later, Hooper reveals information about his family's fortune, while shark hunting at night. He isn't just a nerdy biologist. He's a man born with a silver spoon in his mouth, living the life of an intellectual, while desperately seeking the approval of men who possess the machismo that he lacks. This further becomes apparent in the scene in which he and Quint exchange stories of their scars. Even Quint, rough, tough shark hunter, becomes a fleshed-out human being. To begin with, I found him grating. I couldn't see why a film would take the time to make its other main characters, Brody and Hooper, so real, but be so lazy as to make the third only a stereotype of male bravado. The stereotype proves to be a mask of arrogance, covering up for the horrors that he experienced in the past while hunting in World War II. Quint was aboard a top-secret ship that was sunk during the war. He and his fellow crew members who survived the initial attack were left afloat for days while they tried to defend themselves against mid-ocean shark attacks until their long-awaited rescue. Quint doesn't get weepy during this scene, but he does relax the veneer of invulnerability. The most interesting character quirk and least explained is Brody's fear of water. We never receive a solid answer as to why he's afraid. When his fear is questioned, Brody's answer is drowning. But the answer is too quick to be taken at face value. Later, during Hooper and Quint's exchange of scar stories, Brody lifts his shirt slightly as if to consider sharing a story of his own, but he quickly changes his mind. We are left to assume that the story is too painful to relive. Presumably it has something to do with a shark. Regardless, they made a wise decision in not explaining it. Whatever it is would most likely seem too convenient, and explicitly stated would sound corny. Mayor Vaughn is interesting. I can't call him unsympathetic because his motives for keeping the beach open are not exactly greedy. Without the beach, the town's little economy suffers greatly. It's too easy to make a B-movie antagonist into a greedy moron, but they didn't. They made him a considerate moron. Even after he has proof of vicious shark attacks, after he has the confirmation of an expert, he still keeps the beach open. The only thing that makes this character palatable is that after he actually sees a shark attack, he's a nervous wreck. Only then does he submit to Brody's demands, based on the logic that Vaughn's kids were on the beach too. It's difficult to watch a character be that willingly ignorant. It's not that the character doesn't understand the danger, he doesn't want to believe in it. Unfortunately, the entire plot is bent around the mayor's absurd decision. If you can buy that, then the rest of the movie comes naturally. Conversely, the shark is hardly a character. I'm okay with this. Not every film needs its villain to be sympathetic, especially not a monster movie. A monster movie whose monster is a shark. I don't think that a shark can have a history of child abuse or bulimia or something, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's more impressive to flesh out the protagonists. The shark is at its best when we don't see it. For most of the film, the shark is concealed underwater. Early in the film, all shots of the shark are of its fins, or the shots are unclear images. What we don't actually see is filled in by the imagination. Therefore, it becomes more frightening. Later, the shark is shown in full detail, but due to dramatic build, it was inevitable. Maybe it doesn't look particularly real, but hey, suspend your disbelief for a moment and enjoy the film for what it is. A point of view camera is used to show the shark's gradual approach. This creates tension of the best kind. We know it's coming, and yet we're still frightened when it does. We're frightened when it's coming. John Williams' score can be largely credited for this. The music builds to a crescendo and cuts off before it hits the high notes. Then the shark attacks. This makes the attack more realistic. It just happens. No one stands up and says, "Everyone beware, for a shark has Billy." The people react in bewilderment that is dipped in denial. Then the utter panic takes place, and the people flee for their lives. Jaws is a classic, and significant to film history, but why rate it based on its marketing? The film inspires sympathy for the main characters. The men develop a camaraderie that makes the movie all the more rewarding. Since the plot is stereotyped, I can't give the film a perfect score. However, Jaws proves that formulas are not bad if they are used correctly, so I have to give Jaws a 4.5 out of 5. Thanks for watching Horror Movie Rewind, and tune in next time for my review of The Ring.